Hi, Dina.
Hello, Francesca. It's a pleasure to have you coming to my studio, my messed up studio.
Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for having LTArt and, of course, me here in this amazing place that I really can't
Thank
describe.
You so much.
The magic vibe that we can feel. It's actually your studio, but also your home.
It is my home.
You're
yes.
living art and life as it was
Correct.
in the Romantic period. So
I wish, yeah.
It's really, as I said, a magical place. So, of course, you have such a great career in the art. We can tell from all these amazing paintings. But you also have a BCS in physics, MA in modern French, before starting to study history of art in the 90s. That's correct.
This is true. Before studying history of the 90s, and then before also thinking of painting. And the thing about it is that when I started my BSc in physics, I wanted to be a physicist. It was my dream, because physics for me is a connection with the world, and it's a deeper understanding of the world. After that, I thought the other thing that connects one to the world, and always in my childhood, my mother and my parents were very much into music and art, all kinds of music. You learn a lot about the world from that. You also learn about the creative mind. It became an obsession, a fascination, this idea of place and space. And what Berio has a work called La Cronaca del Luogo, which I think is very interesting because a place can actually affect and how you put something. So this is my interest in physics and the analysis and all that as a deeper understanding of the world turned into history of art. And I wanted to learn about painting more to understand how to write about painting. I never thought I would become a painter, and then it became an obsession. So here we are now, just to make it very brief.
That's very fascinating,
Thank
honestly. You. And we can tell from all your paintings and works that they are almost like a painted collage. Interdisciplinary arts are put together. You have, of course, a passion for not only art, but music, the opera, and poetry.
And Fabrizio D'André.
And Fabrizio D'André, musician and poet.
Yes,
as well.
cantautor, yeah.
How all of this emerges in your art?
So you have a lot of, so it doesn't mean, I'm one of those artists. I'm one of those. Paul Klee had an orchestra. He used to play music, and he was between music and becoming a painter. So a lot of painters and artists have this idea of being in the world, and they want to paint a fragment of the world. The more you have inside of you, sometimes it's just what you have inside of you as a therapy. Suddenly when I paint, things happen, like I'm looking at a painting and then suddenly I'm doing a painting, and then like for instance with Bocca di Rosa, I did the image which I took from Shad, an image from Shad I did after, but it was Fabrizio D'André's phrase that made me want to paint that painting. But then I thought, there was another phrase that from diamonds nothing is born, but from the letame nascono before, from mud, flowers. So I thought, okay, I'm going to add roses, and these roses with a transparent vase, because that becomes like the transparency of our being, and the fact that 3 roses mean the 3 stages of life.
There are so many references and, of course, the sources of inspiration in your paintings, which origins maybe from your Egyptian roots. You started from there, and I think was one of the reasons that brought you to exhibit at the Egyptian embassy, first in Berlin and then London and Vienna. Do you want to tell us more about these projects?
Well, the image that I saw was, I was very troubled because I thought that perhaps Egypt was in a turbulent moment. We kind of had a sort of revolution at the time. With Mubarak, we didn't know what would happen and so on. I thought to myself, okay, why don't I look at these people and see why is everybody so fascinated by them? And I came across the one of the most important objects of art in an exhibition that was actually traveling, but I saw images of it. I didn't, it came then to London much later. And it was the throne of Tutankhamun. Religion is it is the destiny of Egypt, because he has the sun and the rays of the sun, Amun. Ra, the sun, Ra Amun, and with the keys of life, and that it is the sun or our belief in an afterlife and our belief in religion that gives us makes our identity very strong. So I decided to start. At that point, it was 2012, I was doing some portraits, but I was not thinking of myself as a painter. And I decided to do the challenge of painting a large painting and doing it my way. And of course, I did it ad hoc and it went all over the place. And you will see the image, as the image will show you. Government requires courage. Mm-hmm. This is what I called it. And I started from then on, I got encouraged to paint, to continue looking. I became fascinated because Egyptology is one of the, like Greek mythology, it's a fascinating. A friend of mine who was the Egyptian cultural counselor in Berlin told me, Dina, why don't you come and do an exhibition? I told him, Ahmed, I'm not a painter. I have some paintings, but I'm not a painter. He said, I think you are. I think you should come. I think you should get out of this. So I said, okay. And then I looked, I found I had about 25 paintings about Egypt. We had my first exhibition, which is amazing for someone who doesn't think she's a painter, in Berlin, in the Egyptian embassy, with ambassadors present, with a big opening. And they then, it was success.
When you realized you are a painter,
I still didn't. I wasn't sure because you see, I thought I'm painting Egyptians, but can I paint something else? Sometimes we don't believe in ourselves as much as we should believe in ourselves. Yeah. And this was the beginning. And then I started doing exhibitions to do with my cultural memory, with what I've learned, what fascinates me, taking from every part of the world and creating my own world that is a collage of fragments of ideas that I think fit together to give another expression. And my last exhibition, which was 2022, I had a German professor, who actually looked at my paintings and he said, you know, Dina, and I sent him the catalog, the link of the catalog, and he said, I think your paintings are a new take on allegorical painting. And now I believe I'm a painter. Now I do believe I'm a painter.
Surely you are. Let's take, for example, your iconic painting, Al Gran Sole Carico d'Amore. It tells a lot about you and your whole production. Do you want to tell us more?
Yes, this is one of the paintings that I did for my 2022 exhibition. And I have a fascination with different composers, and other than songwriters and poetry and so on, but different composers who are very, if one can say, original or revolutionary in their music, but revolution is not the right word. It's more singular figures. They have a fantasy that is very open to the world, and they take different things. And Luigi Nono is one of them, whom I admire very much. Operas, musical actions that he did was called Sole Carico d'Amore, the sun full of love. And it reminded me very much of my first painting, which was inspired by Tutankhamun's throne, the sun god. What is fascinating about this work by Nono is that he doesn't use a text that he's invented or he looks at, he uses ready-made. So this is a very important thing in art, in contemporary art, this idea of the ready-made. And this also talks about the multiplicity of identity and how we are all living in one world under the same sun, and we are all very different, and we need to share this sun. So, and we feel the same sensations of heat So I decided to look at different figures that I could put in that painting. And one of the figures was the sort of like a male figure that is Nordic. He could be Russian, he could be German, he could be European, Northern European. And that goes with Lenin, Mayakovsky, and so on. And then another figure that is that of a German, or she could be a French woman. And a third figure that could be a Latin American or Spanish or Mediterranean woman. And there's a story with them that follows with these fragments in the work of Nono. She has a lantern, and this lantern is also a source of light. But lanterns have a lot of meanings because although they have the same source like the sun, it's fire, they can be put to give hope for a sailor, they can be put as a romantic, so it has many meanings. And the third lady had a candle. And I put that candle, the flame of the candle, again, the candle is a source of, it's a votive, it's religious, it's a source of hope. There are many meanings to the candle, so 3 sources of light. And I added a quotation from Che Guevara, which runs as a refrain in the work of Nono, called, that says that beauty does not, deny revolution. La belleza no reniega, no está reñida con la revolución. Beauty does not oppose revolution. And revolution can mean many things. It can mean also the fact that you change life, that you decide to go against certain things and do something else, and so forth. So this was my painting of Nono. It is one of 6 paintings that I did of different aspects of Nono.
What's amazing is that every painting in this house really tells a whole story. It takes you to a new dimension and world, which is so fascinating.
The next painting that I did, as you were asking me about the inspirations, the next painting that I did was related to another figure that fascinated me. That was the teacher, a sort of teacher of Luigi Nono, Malipiero, who was a noble Venetian composer. He was very into his Venetian identity. So he was looking at aspects of Venetian identity, such as masks, the carnival, Pietro Longhi, different, but at the same time being connected to a world, because his music is also for the world, and the people that sang his music, those that played his music, the director, were from different parts of the German, English, French, and so on. So I was fascinated by this opera that he did. His first part was called The Death of the Masks. And remember, we had a pandemic, and we're coming out of pandemic. And this idea of masks is very pertinent on many levels. You can read it in different ways. And it can be something that is positive, it can be something that is negative, protective, it can be menacing, it can be folklore, it can be disguise, it can be... And of course, the Venice Carnival uses the mask. It's very important, but cultures like African culture use masks as voodoo, as religious, as many meanings. And I was looking at Longhi and taking from different sources for my images. And I remember the phrase, Il teatro e la vita non sono la stessa cosa. And I thought, okay, this could be another part of the painting, could be called the second title for the painting. So this was the Malipiero one. You were asking me also about a painting that I have.
Is this one? Yes, which caught my eye immediately that I entered the room. This is something that...
What sensation does it give you before?
Well, it's strange because it's dark, but at the same time it's full of life. The more you look at it, the more you feel like involved in the scene, and the character as well is so deep and powerful. And okay. the candle is it a candle? Or
it is a match.
It's a match.
It's a match. Exactly. It's these big matches. You know, it's very interesting that we come to this, because although Nono had studied with Malipiero at some point, Lachenmann, who is the basis of this, was a student of Nono. And Helmut Lachenmann is he's alive, he's a fascinating composer, German composer. He's one of the very important ones. And he took the myth, it's very interesting also the work that he did, because he took the story of the little girl with the match girl, the poor match girl of Hans Christian Andersen, a Danish story. And he creates her while every time she lights a match, she's very cold and people are indifferent to her. And this is about how indifferent people can be towards people who are suffering. And she's a child. And every time she lights a match, she sees a vision. And one of the visions, and this is where Lachenmann sort of goes into other worlds, one of the visions is Leonardo da Vinci. When he was in Sicily, he writes something about the volcano erupting. And one of the visions is a whole quotation from Leonardo da Vinci in the work of Lachenmann, in that opera, that catapults this child in her fantasy from the coldness of Denmark to the Mediterranean and to Mount Etna in the fantasy of the composer. And so there's this thread that is sort of like to do with this volcanic, against this coldness that is here. And the very last image of her fantasy, the little girl sees her grandmother who died, who was very tender towards her, and she tells her, "Please take me with you. I can't, it's." So the grandmother, and it's supposed the green is sort of like towards heaven, and the grandmother takes her, and the next day people find the little girl frozen and dead, but with a smile on her face. So this idea of, and it reminded me very much of this terrible work that Primo Levi wrote about in the Lager and so on. It's a sad piece, but it's to do with the fact that also no matter what circumstances we are, we cling to hope as human beings, and it's very important. So
thank you so much, Dina, for having us and taking us through your dimension full of art and culture. Has been a pleasure being with you, and thank you so very much for sharing your work with us.
Not at all. It was a pleasure having you and talking to you, and it's lovely that you sort of encourage me as well. Thank you very much, Francesca. Thank you.